Stanley Bagshaw and the 14-foot wheel. In Huddersgate, famed for its tram lines, up north where it's boring and slow, Stanley Bagshaw resides with his grandma at number 4, Prince Albert Row. Now, near where Stan lives is a factory that he frequently happens to pass that makes sprockets and wheels out of copper and steel and little motorbike parts out of brass. One day, Stanley Bagshaw was walking along past the old factory gates when the works engineer shouted, "Stanley, come here! Can you give me a hand, me old mate?" "The tea lady's off with the measles, and my tea break is long overdue. Could you keep an eye on the foundry while I put on the pot for a brew?" Well, Stanley, being kind and obliging, said he could spare a moment or two. So George then began to explain to our Stan what he wanted the young lad to do. "Now, you see this big clock in the middle? This shows when the wheel mould is full. Now here's what you do. When it says 32, you just give this big lever a pull. Now I'll only be gone for a moment, so don't worry," the engineer said. "Are you certain that you understand what to do?" Our Stanley just nodded his head. Well, at first the job seemed quite exciting, but it soon got so tired and bored he just couldn't keep from falling asleep. He fell so fast asleep that he snored. But the hands on the clock kept on turning. 32, 33, 34, 38, 39, past the red danger sign, till the mould wouldn't hold any more. Bang went the mould pumping engine. Our Stanley woke up with a shout, and Cyril and George rushed into the forge to see what the noise was about. "Just look at that clock," shouted Cyril. "By gummy," the engineer said. "Stanley Bagshaw, have you let it past 32? Our Stanley just nodded his head. So then George gave a pull on the lever. The machine made a strange clunking sound. Then what a surprise! "Just look at the size!" shouted George. "It's near 14 foot round." Well, this bicycle wheel was enormous. "What the heck shall we do?" Cyril cried. Said George, "It's quite clear that we can't leave it here." So they all pushed the big wheel outside. "But mind the slope by the door," said our Stanley. But his cry of alarm was too late, because they pushed it too hard. It rolled into the yard and out of the old factory gates. Right down the middle of Pump Street it went, closely followed by Cyril and Stan. It rolled on down into Huddersgate town. And that's when the real fun began. Ron Mellor was laying some concrete and had just smoothed it out nice and flat. And the runaway wheel knocked him head over heels right into the concrete. Splat! It rolled down past Roadbottom's cake shop and gave Charlie Clegg such a chase he ran all through the town, knocked a fat policeman down and squashed a cream tart in his face. The wheel ran out through the market. "By gum," Cyril cried, "what a lark!" It rolled down the hill past the gasworks and turned into Huddersgate Park. In the park, Maurice Ratcliffe was fishing. Sitting there, half asleep on his stool, till he saw the big wheel, when he let out a squeal, "Ah!" jumped up and fell into the pool. The wheel rolled into the playground and up the slide that was there. When it got to the top, the wheel didn't stop. It just disappeared into the air. "Well, that's very odd," muttered Cyril. "It's perhaps just as well," said our Stan. It must be quite near me tea time. I'd better get home to me gran.
Have you had a nice time?
Said his grandma, when our Stan got home for his tea. I've just been a run around Huddersgate, gran. Nothing much ever happens to me. We interrupt this programme of really boring Transylvanian Manglehorn music to bring you a news flash. An unidentified flying object has been sighted over the northern town of Huddersgate. Scientists believe it could be a spacecraft from the distant planet of Sprocatellus Spocularia. Eyewitnesses describe the UFO as looking rather like a 14-foot bicycle wheel. The end.